George Floyd, I was a infantry platoon leader in Vietnam in 69 and 70, and so I experienced a lot of death. What got me about that was how casual it was. How this guy just stood there, sat there on this guy as he's dying, his hand in his pocket, just as casual as if you were standing there talking to somebody over the fence. People telling him that the guy's dying, he's telling him that he's dying, and the guy does not care. I firmly believe he meant to kill him. And I think he probably thought he'd get away with it. That got to me, because I know what it is to watch somebody die. And that was just flat out wrong.
I think for some of us, it's understood. I grew up with that understanding. You know, does it infuriate you? For the events, to see the events unfold as they have unfolded recently, yeah, it's infuriating, because you would think you would be beyond that point by now. There's someone who has authority over you at that point in time, who has a weapon, who can make you do whatever they want you to do at that point in time, what they want you to do. That's scary. So, you know, when I tell my son, hey, don't go hang out on the lakefront with your friends. Why? Everybody's doing it. You're not everybody. Why is that a conversation I'm still having in this day and age with my son, that I have this innate fear that if something happens and he is in this group, he is going to be the first one to be accused.
It was late night. I was dropping my friend off. I was actually leaving a party. You know how downtowns are. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what's a one way and what's not. You know, there was a cop there and pulled me over. And honestly, I just really did not know exactly what to do. All the things I hear from my friends, and like, not just like what they hear, I'm talking about like firsthand experiences that they have. You know, it just, all that's going through my head, you know, is this gonna be like the first I get, you know, something bad's gonna happen to me just because I'm. But everything went smoothly. He was like, you know, he gave me a ticket for going down the one way. And I started driving off. And I guess, like, at one point I just shut down. I pulled over and I just started crying because I was like, it was just like overcome with like emotion. Like, I did not know exactly how to feel about that situation.
One of the men in the cast was talking to me because his son was getting to be of age to get a driver's license. And the things that he had to tell him about how to be safe, how to act and react around policemen in ways that I would never had to talk to my own children about. And it broke my heart. And I got very angry, especially as a parent.
You know, the term white privilege is now a household term. And people are equating that with wealth. And I keep hearing from people and seeing social media posts from people saying, you know, I'm white, but I'm not privileged. I work for everything I had. It's like, that's not what it's about.
Understand white privilege. They don't get it. They don't understand that there are conversations that I have to have with my son that they don't have to have with theirs. and they don't understand why. And then a lot of times, because there's so many things that's just understood, it's just the way it is. It's the way it's always been. And we just act accordingly. But we have a generation of kids that are coming up and say, well, why does it have to be that way?
I understand, I think, too much, because on the other side, that's the norm. For a white man, for a white lady, that's been the norm forever. They've been winning supposedly forever. So to them, hey, why we got to change this? What's going on? It's not as bad as it used to be. When things are happening more to one side than the other side, then it needs to be a conversation about it. And if we can intelligently have a conversation about it, I think we can get somewhere. But we have to find ourselves in situations to come together and say, listen, we are different. Yes, we are different. And what happened to one group is a concern, because this person wants to march and protest about it. That doesn't mean they're wrong. They just want to be heard.
It's things that they take for granted, that they do every day, and that they expect, that we can't afford to expect to be treated the same way.
The little small things that happen all the time. The big things are easy. That's what everybody knows. We all know about the big, terrible things that happen. That's an easy one. But to me, one of the biggest things that I see that's a problem with getting past racism is getting through those small things.
I was at a grocery store, actually, and it's a little white lady in front of us, and she kind of grabbed the purse real tight, and I get it, I understood, when she looked like she was maybe 90 years old. I told the cashier, I said, well, they say we all look alike. And she turned around with this most humble look on her face. She said, you're the first to admit that. And I just smiled at her, and the girl was like, she just, I guess all her life, she just said, they all look alike. Black people all look alike. And here I am, years later, I'm standing behind and say, they say we all look alike. And honestly, she just humbly turned around and said, wow, you're the first to admit that. And, we just kind of, if I were like some of my other friends, it would have been a whole nother situation, but for me, I was just like, yes, ma'am.
Those little things like that become a daily struggle, and those daily struggles build on your psyche. And it's like people of color that experience that, they learn to compartmentalize it.
I will never fully understand the Black experience, but there have been several specific experiences I've had in adult life that just resonated with me. When I worked in law enforcement, my last partner was an African-American woman who I had hand-selected to be my partner because she was very talented and very good at her job. And she and I went out of town to a conference, and at a break between sessions, she wanted to go shopping. And of course, I went with her. And going through the ladies' shoes department and the purses, which were her favorite two things to buy, the way the sales clerks followed us, if not with their bodies, with their eyes, everywhere we went in that mall, all eyes were on her. It was as if, she was clearly there to steal something. And I could tell she was aware of it, but she didn't react to it. And I wanted to pull my badge out of my wallet and throw it in somebody's face and say, "Excuse me, can we help you?" And after we left the mall, we went to lunch, and I decided to have that conversation. And I asked her about it. And I said, is that something you experience before, often? And she said, every day of my life. And I almost cried. And I just said, I'm really just so sorry.
It's really funny how closed-minded some people still are in this area, and they don't realize it. So I grew up in a community it's predominantly white and middle class. And when I went to school, I went to a public high school, and because she let everybody in. That's what public high school is. And I happened to become friends with one of these girls, and she was a black girl, and I didn't think anything differently just because, she and I got along so well. Like, we lived very near each other. And, I was telling my parents about her, my mom was just like, oh, okay, but say her name again. And I told her name, and it's, not like a typical like Stephanie or something like that. Her parents were from Liberia originally. And so she was like, oh, she's black. And I was like, yeah, she is. And she goes, oh, okay. Well, what do her parents do for a living? I'm like, okay, well, her dad teaches college, and her mom actually works, she in the medical field. And she goes, oh, okay, well, she's a different kind of black, so that's fine. You can go over to her house. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, okay, my family, they're not up for talking about anything like it at all. And I've gotten in numerous fights with my mother over it. But here we are.
I was in a marching band in 1970 and 71, and towards the end of the parade, I was playing the cymbals, and the percussion section, we were kind of sort of in the middle of the band, and as we were playing, I noticed we were doing a song at the time, and I noticed that all of a sudden the music stopped. And as I turned around to look, I noticed a lot of confusion going on. And what had happened, what they told me, some people in the crowd had started spitting on the majorettes. And they had started spitting on the girls, and the guys in the band had gone to their defense and started to fight, defending the girls. Our uniforms, they were brand new for that year, and part of my uniform got messed up, and some of the other band members' uniform got messed up, and to experience that, firsthand, that was pretty devastating to me.
Don't be silent anymore. A lot of people tend to just stay out of this conversation, especially the people that are on our side that are Caucasian, So it's like you have to speak up, because if you don't say anything, it just normalizes it.
It's been the tolerance within our law enforcement that give them the unwritten authority to do what they do.
I see color. We all see color. Seeing it through the right prism and having an understanding of what it means in our society is extremely important, and that's why these conversations need to be had.
Literally, it's just a human decency issue. Like, you need to treat people, of course, the cardinal rule, treat people the way you want to be treated, but you're not. And putting people in these classifications and in these bubbles, and you need to realize that what you're doing subconsciously that you don't think you're doing. And that's what I try to bring up with people that I work with in my day job, because they see very differently than I do.
We're not talking, and we're not communicating, we're not understanding the experience from another point of view, on a human-to-human point of view, not two people whose skins are different colors, but two human beings that are sitting down. And I think when you get people to really talk, that goes away.
My pastor preached a sermon years ago about cow manure. And he said when a cow, dumps out his manure and the crust goes across it, you can't smell that. You see it, but you can't smell it. But once you crack that crust, it stinks a little bit, It's going to stink. It's going to get to a place where people are going to be uncomfortable. Like, I'm not racist. I don't do that. But look, let's just have the conversation.